Hello and welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today is Monday, February the 11th, 2019. My name is Kerry Holzman. Welcome in, everybody. I have a few delays that were preventing me from getting started and may actually interfere with this whole build, which may be canceled for today. I don't know yet. But we're going to try with a good faith effort to get it started today, and if not, I may have to pick it up tomorrow. Thank you guys for joining in. What I've got for parts here is a Phanteks Enthoo Evolv case. Pretty big case. You've seen me work on these before. We've had these on the channel, maybe not in this gunmetal gray, but certainly a familiar case you've seen here before. For the rest of the parts, we've got a this is an AORUS Z390 Ultra. AORUS is a brand from GIGABYTE. We've got a Samsung 970 EVO. This is the 500 gig version. We've got two kits of 16 gigs of RAM from Corsair Vengeance Pro. This is RGB RAM. This is a 16 gig kits times 2 for a total of 32 gigs. We've got a Core i7-9700K for storage, going with a Western Digital Black 4 terabyte. We've also got an EVGA GeForce 1070 Ti, the Dark Rock 4 CPU cooler from Be Quiet. This will be a new experience for me. I've never installed one of these before. And to power it all is the Seasonic Focus Gold 850FX. It's a fully modular power supply. So those are the parts involved in today's build. And let's just do a quick shout out here to the folks in the chat. Hello to Tony and Robert and Al and Richard and Alhez and Mark, Seth, Douglas, Peter, Reloaded 714, Daryl and Jens and Soren, Patrick Russo, Torgo, Kevin again there, Samuel Ramos, The Life of Gaming with Del Dorge, of course Catherine Anna Hauserman, Patrick Manny, Reynaldo Torres, Douglas Biggers, Russell Franz, and Z-Hammer223. Welcome in, guys. Welcome in. Thanks for joining me. We've got about 220 people watching us now, and yeah, it's a tough situation that I'm in right now. I was expecting a call from Newegg. I've got for the very first time, I've got a part that the post office says they delivered that they did not deliver. In fact, the part was supposed to be here on Friday, and I received 0 mail on Friday. And my mailbox requires a key, so there's no way anybody stole my mail. I just very rarely, I can't recall a day where I didn't at least get a piece of junk mail. I got nothing, and yet the package says it's been delivered. I've tried contacting the post office. The post office says it's too soon to file it as missing. That might be Newegg calling me now. This is Kerry. All right, guys, I apologize. That was Newegg on the phone and talking about this missing package that was never delivered. Again, I've never had a package not delivered before. It's just never occurred in all the years I've been here. There's never been an issue with porch pirates or anything. And in fact, I can't recall a day where I didn't get any mail. And something's happening at my local post office. I rarely see the same postal delivery worker twice. So I don't know if the person who used to have this route quit and they don't have a replacement, and so they get volunteers perhaps to take on the extra route from day to day, and they're not familiar with the route and they're misdelivering mail. That's what I think has happened. Post office says it's too soon to file a claim, even though the tracking number shows it was delivered on the 8th. It was not. In fact, I received 0 mail on the 8th, which in and of itself is a red flag. There's never a day that goes by that I don't get at least a piece of junk mail. And I don't think Newegg did anything wrong here. I think this was shipped via FedEx, and FedEx handed it off to the United States Postal Service, and then the United States Postal Service supposedly delivered it. And I believe they either delivered it to a neighbor who's decided to keep it, or they didn't deliver it at all. I don't know. I really don't know. But in the meantime, Newegg customer service was very good. They said that they would issue a refund. They file a claim. They'll issue a refund back to the customer in 7 to 10 days, and in the meantime, I've authorized the customer to go ahead and order the part again. Only this customer is so upset because they had a bad experience with Newegg. They didn't want to order from Newegg, and I twisted his arm and I said, it'll be fine. But this isn't Newegg's fault. Newegg did everything right. Between FedEx and the post office, somebody dropped the ball. But I have no doubt now the customer's going to order from Amazon, which is fine. It doesn't matter. His build is scheduled for Thursday. That's not this build here, but it's frustrating because I have been getting a lot of misdelivered mail ever since the route worker keeps changing. I opened my door one day after I'd gotten my mail, and there was a magazine sitting on the ground. So it seems as though, if I had to guess, one of my neighbors got the magazine, Maximum PC magazine, and then just dropped it on my porch. Or the mailman was driving around in his truck and realized, oh crap, I still have this, and then dropped it off. But nobody rang a doorbell, nobody handed it to me. It's all very shady and iffy. I really need to start looking at some camera footage. I think that's what I need to do. It just takes more time out of my day to start sifting through camera footage to find out who did this. But there was certainly no mail delivery at all on Friday, and like I said, that's really, really unusual. I can't recall in the last 24 months that a day went by without at least a piece of advertising in the mail. So I don't know what's going on, and it's frustrating because I've got everything else for the customer but that one M.2 drive, and I kind of need that. Kind of plays an important role. So anyway, sorry for the delays and trying. Some days, no matter how much I try, it just ain't gonna happen. But let's see if we can get some work done today. I got my Coke. Welcome in. And I don't know how I want to start this build. I usually start by prepping the case. This will be a nice big heavy case to ship, I'm sure. I also contacted Corsair about this this RAM, and I said, this was on an X99 system. It's quad channel. I got 2 of the sticks working, but the other 2 sticks don't seem to work. And they said, well, can you send us a copy of the receipt? And I said, well, I don't have the receipt, but it's lifetime memory, isn't it? Do you really need the receipt? And they said, well, take a picture of the information on the RAM module and send it to us. And I did, and they said, all right, we got you back, it's fine. But we want to replace all 4 to make sure that they're all paired together. So that's going to postpone Crazy Vera's computer, because I'm going to have to pull the memory out of it and ship it back. But at least Corsair was very professional, very courteous, as was Newegg today. When it rains, it pours. I can build computers for 2 years or longer and never have to call a manufacturer for anything like this. And then I've got to call 2 in the span of a week. And it sometimes happens that way. So the best you can hope for is that you have a good, courteous experience with customer service and that they take care of you. And in both cases, Newegg did a good job. Corsair also has done a good job, as they've done in the past. This is Carrie. Yeah. So anyway, isn't there times where you're watching, you're like, why doesn't he just give up today? Why is he trying to film when it's clear this is not a good filming day? Red Dragon has contributed $2. He says, I got my PC today. Thank you so much. Very nice. Very nice. Fares Al-Manai has contributed $2.79. He says, hey, Carrie from Bahrain, love your videos. Very nice, thank you. I see Bill Litherland's joining us. Hey, Bill, welcome in. So yes, did I miss any other contributions? Joe says, no shout out for Joe, no worries. Crazy day, gotta run early. Take care, everyone. We'll catch the replay. Very good. Thank you, Joe. And Yehuda Blonders contributed $10. A nice contribution. Thank you. And Madi UL. Hey, Madi, good to see you. $2 came in from Madi. Thank you guys, sir, for supporting the channel. And let's get started here. So I just have to remember how all this comes apart. It's been a while. Let's see, we have hinges on this side. This, I thought, comes off. Yes, it does. I'll just set that down over here, because we don't want that to get stepped on or bent. And those just swing open, and we can pop the doors off there. There's one door. And we'll swing this around this way, and we'll grab the other door, which I have to move this stuff before I knock it over. So open this side up. And same thing, just pop the hinges around. Those came off nice and easy, like that. Okay. We've got plastic that needs to come off, and we got a big box of hardware in here that has to come out. So let's go ahead and get that out of there. This is the accessory box, which contains what? Owner's manual, attention, RMA information, zip ties, and LEDs. What are these LEDs for? I got a red one, a green one, and a clear one. What am I supposed to do with those? I don't know. I love how they put those into a little container that keeps my OCD happy and saves the landfill. And then we've got some trays, hard drive trays and adapters, I guess, for storage, which I will leave in here for now. It's you know you're dealing with a nice case if they're including a plastic storage tray, because normally you wouldn't even get that many screws from any other case manufacturer. And when you do get screws, they're each segregated into their own little Ziploc bags, which ultimately, you know, end up in the landfill. This is much smarter, much, much smarter. And you get what you pay for, right? This is not an inexpensive case, although it is made in China. What isn't? It is well built. Not everything that comes out of China is junk, but it can be hard sometimes to determine that until after you've made the purchase. Phanteks has a pretty good reputation as a good case manufacturer with regards to quality of workmanship and materials and the well thought out designs. That said, they're not a sponsor of the channel in any way, and the customer decided on this case. This was not my idea. I got no problem with it. It's just a bit big. It's a bit heavy to ship it. It costs a bit more money to ship something this heavy. That's this solidly built. So anyway, I got an interesting email from Acronis. Remember the other day I sort of hinted that, you know, if Acronis would give us would offer a discount code, we certainly would take them up on that. They were watching, and they did. So in the video notes below this video, you should see, below the parts list, you'll see that I have an interview scheduled with Eli the Computer Guy tomorrow, which should be around noon Arizona time, 2 p.m. Pacific time. And I will try to see if I can simulcast that interview here on my channel as well. But I do plan to have Eli come on as a guest here. If everything goes well, and I hope it does, that he'll join me on my channel in return for me joining him on his. And I'm very much looking forward to that tomorrow. But with regards to Acronis, I was just looking to see if it's in here, and I don't see it. Why is it not in there? I need to fix that. There is a, a discount code and a link you can use to save 50% on the cheapest version of Acronis. And the person at Acronis said, it looks like you like to recommend the cheapest version, so we'll give you a discount off the cheapest version. And I said, yeah, I think people, you know, stick their toe in the water, and if they like it, then they can buy the more advanced versions if they like it, you know, if they want that. But in the meantime, if you just want to do what I'm doing, it's a good way to get yourself familiar with it, and it's a pretty affordable deal. And I'm just trying to find what I did with the link. I believe I posted it. Okay, so first of all, the deal is, it's not forever. It's just until the end of this month, the end of February. And I'm going to copy and paste the link into the video notes right now. In fact, I'll put it right up at the top. And I'm going to put it here in the chat room as well, so you guys don't have to go digging for it. But if you use that link, now I'm not profiting off of this. This is for you guys. There's nothing in this for me other than goodwill. Let's see. I have to break it into two pieces because it's too big for one message. There it is. So you can get 50% off an Acronis subscription license until the 28th of February using the code BackupWithCarey, which is no spaces, it's all one word, and using the link that is provided. It's a hell of a discount, and it's just for you guys. It's a unique code. Acronis is not offering this to anybody else. So as a benefit of just being a viewer to my channel, you can take advantage of that discount if you want to. Like I said, I don't get a penny whether you choose to buy it or you don't. It does not impact my life one way or the other. So my agenda here is simply to save you some money for a product that I use all the time, and if you have use for it, you know, proceed accordingly. So my thanks to the good folks over at Acronis for participating, and it was very nice of them to offer that. But I do have the link now in the video description, which is now saved. So if you refresh, reload the page, you should see it in the video description now. And of course, it'll be there after this video is done and it's rendered. It'll be viewable as a pre-recorded live stream. And of course, the video notes will remain intact as well. Alistair Collins contributed £2. Thank you, Alistair. Okay, so where was I? Still trying to focus on getting some work done today. I guess I can get the power supply installed. So this is the Seasonic Focus Gold. It's an 80 plus gold power supply, hence the name gold. There's different ratings in power efficiency from white, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, titanium, each one being more expensive and more efficient. And it's really just a clever way to charge you more. Unless you're buying hundreds or thousands of computers, the efficiency rating probably isn't going to affect your electric bill very much. But if you have a big company with hundreds or thousands of computers, it may be a worthy investment to get the most power efficient power supply possible. And it could very well lead to a very obvious difference in the electric bill. We start with a power cord, which for some reason is not wire tied. It's just loose in there, which is weird. We've got the bundle of cables here. We've got some loose zip ties. This really feels like it's been opened before. It's really strange. Seasonic is a flagship brand known for their quality, and their prices being very expensive reflect that. It's very unusual to have things loose in a box like zip ties and a power cable. That is a sign that this has been opened and perhaps returned. However, the box was shrink wrapped and everything does appear to be in place. So maybe that's the way they pack them now, but I expect better from Seasonic. When I can buy an EVGA power supply with twice the warranty at half the price, and it's packed better than this, I'm losing any motivation to recommend Seasonic anymore. If that's not a return and that's normal, this power supply is far too much money to tolerate that. Donnie Seegers contributed $2. He says it's just another Manic Monday. Yeah, I suppose it is. We got a piece of plastic covering of the logo here, as they usually do. Yeah. So hopefully the power supply works okay. I know it's got a good warranty, but I have to tell you, for what this power supply costs, I think EVGA is wiping the floor with them, especially when I see the way this is packaged. This is the way I would expect a cheap power supply to be packaged. You know, just willy-nilly like that. It's very unusual, and I've never seen that from a Seasonic power supply before. I hope for their sake it was returned. I hope this is not how they all come out of the box. If it is, well, time to perhaps consider other manufacturers that don't charge as much and put a little more time and pride into their packaging. Okay, so I've got the power supply here, and I'm going to place it with the fan down. And we're going to come in from this side with the power connector facing out, obviously. And we'll rest that down there like so. And see if we can get it to align. And then I need some screws. Now, did the power supply come with screws? Because EVGA would give us screws. Let's see if there's any screws in here. Just come around so you can see. Motherboard power. This bag is opened. I do believe they sent me an opened power supply, an open box power supply. I'm absolutely convinced of it now because this package is ripped open. I think this came from Amazon. Yeah, there's no wire ties. You can see the wires are all just jammed in there any which way. There's no organization. They're not properly tied together. And there's no screws. The screws should have been in there, and there aren't any, so the product is not complete. Now, what I'm concerned about is how a power supply is tested. If a power supply comes back to a retailer, there is no accurate way that I know of to test it. I mean, sure, you can give it power, You can see if the fans spin, and you can see if a motherboard comes on. But until you're actually drawing 850 watts from it on a regular and continuous basis, there's no way to know if it's good or bad. And I don't know any way to draw that much power out of a power supply shy of a $2,000 power supply tester, which is worth far more than the power supply, so it doesn't make any sense. Now, I can double check with the customer who ordered the parts. If they ordered an open box item, they might have done that. That would explain a lot, but as far as I know, everything was new. So I'll have to check with the customer on that. In the meantime, it is missing the screws. However, Phanteks does a great job of giving us a variety of screws, and in here, these are the screws we want right here. But we shouldn't have to use these, especially for the price of that power supply. This is not a cheap power supply. In fact, at an 850 watt, 80 plus gold rating, it may be the most expensive power supply with those characteristics. 80 plus gold, 850 watt, fully modular. I do believe the Seasonic is the most expensive power supply that's fully modular, 850 watts, 80 plus gold. And so to pay that outrageous amount of money and get something that's been repackaged would only be acceptable if the customer knew that going into it, that it was open box. And I'll have to contact the customer and find out. In the meantime, we're going to keep moving forward. Now, there's a part of me that says this day is just getting worse, right? There's a part of me that says maybe I shouldn't do this build today because of everything that's been preventing me from getting it started, and the very first part I put in appears to not be correct. You know, what else am I leading into? But I'm also a logical guy. I'm not a superstitious guy. My joke is that I think it's bad luck to be superstitious. The truth is, whether or not I was having a good day or a bad day, that power supply didn't magically change to an open box status. It was that way. Just, you know, as human beings, we sort of look for these excuses to bad JoJo or a bad day, but certainly attitude plays a big part in a bad day. You know, how you choose to react to it is 90% of your bad day. 10% of your bad day is actually what happened. 90% is how you're voluntarily choosing to react to it. And after a while, after you get beaten down so many times, you don't want to get up again. But I have to tell you that the difference between successful people and people who aren't successful is the people who are successful failed, but they just kept getting back up. And the people who haven't succeeded have not gotten back up. And that's really it's all attitude. I don't know how else to explain it to you. And chances are all these other parts are going to be just fine. It's not like if I open them today, they'll be bad, and if I wait till tomorrow, they'll be good. If they're bad, they're bad. But boy, I'll tell you, it can be difficult sometimes, and you go, it's just today. If I would have done this tomorrow, it probably would have been fine. But the facts are the facts. So bad luck to be superstitious. Remember I said that. That went in nice and easy. Yeah, if the customer knowingly opened an open box item, then everything's kosher, everything's fine. I just can't imagine the customer would have done that, but anything's possible. And I shouldn't be jumping to any conclusions until I have evidence otherwise. Brad Henderson has contributed $5, says, hey, Carey, out here in Holbrook, Arizona, watching the show today. Hope everyone is having a great day. I've been to Holbrook. Did a trip up to Canyon de Chelly and stayed in Holbrook. Put that on a t-shirt. Oh, yeah, right. Hey, tell my sister she does that. I had a person leave a comment on the shirt I was wearing the other day. She said, the next time you and I go out for coffee, wear that shirt. I'm like, great. Great. Attractive women are asking me to put more clothes on. Great. I must be doing something right. Or not. All right. Well, obviously we're not putting a DVD drive in here because this is one of them gamer style cases with no front bays, which people like the aesthetics of. And that makes my job a lot easier because there's less cabling I got to do and less work for me. I'm fine with it. Not my personal choice. I like having an optical drive, although you can still add one through USB. They're only about $10 more. Even cheaper when you get them on sale compared to an internal. You get the external drives. And I mentioned I have the other Dell system, and there's a few other older systems I've got. We're still looking for candidates to win these computers. And what I'm looking for, not this computer, but the computers I was doing, the off-lease Dell, and I got a couple of older machines that, you know, may be very powerful compared to what somebody else out there is using. So what we're looking for is we're looking for people who are preferably disabled veterans, you know, on Social Security income. And we're looking for those people to come forward directly, not for you to come forward for them. Not that you know somebody or you're related to somebody. I don't care about that. I preferably want a viewer, an actual viewer who watches the channel, whose name I recognize, to be a recipient of one of these free PCs rather than somebody who goes, hey, I heard from somebody that you're giving this away and I'd like it. Well, that's well and good, and it may be a great way to get a viewer, but I want to make sure that the viewers I have get a fair crack at it first and foremost. And if none of those folks are qualifying, then we'll reach out beyond our community and hopefully bring other people in the community, although for all I know, they could just grab it and go. Which, again, is fine. It's my goal to help the community, not to just have people take advantage of me. So what we're looking for are people that are disabled American veterans, or if you've provided a service to the community, fireman, policeman, teacher, school teacher. You know, school teachers never made a lot of money. It's very reasonable to assume that somebody would be on a fixed income there. But they're ideally are a regular watcher of the channel, and they have a machine that's old and outdated, and they have the ability to get a monitor and speakers, because this computer that I'm shipping, the Dell, has a keyboard and mouse included. The other machines I've got are a bit older, and they're just the tower itself. There's no keyboard, there's no mouse. There will be a power cable, and that's it. These, on top of the cost of the machines, they're also costing me an average of about $80 to ship them, depending on how far away they're shipping. And so the distance and what the cost is involved is, these are all factors that I'm considering. Clearly, if there's somebody that's a regular watcher of the channel who's on the West Coast, I would prioritize them first and foremost, because it would just be less expensive to get the computer faster. It's less likely for any damage. The last thing I want to happen in a giveaway is to create any animosity or, you know, have it backfire. And that's a lot of reasons why I've stayed away from giveaways. Is very often people can get angry for whatever. There's reasons you can't even imagine until you do it. And then you end up upsetting people when all you were trying to do was, you know, create goodwill. So we want to make sure everybody has a chance to win, and we're looking for those eligible to come forward directly. You can email me. The email address, you can go to tech-vets.com. And again, you know, it is a giveaway. It's not a contest, it's not a raffle, it's just a gift. And ideally, it's a gift to somebody familiar, not a complete stranger. So barring all that, if nobody who is familiar is qualifying for it or wants it, then we'll reach outside the community. And you know, just the idea is to just issue goodwill and let karma be karma. And in a perfect world, it would create new members of the community and encourage others to watch and to grow with the channel. And we'll see what it is. But in the meantime, we see Red Dragon got his computer. He's very happy. Daryl May has contributed $10 just now, and he says, hey, Carey, I'm a disabled vet, but I'm all set. I just wanted to say hi. I wish there was something I could do for you, Daryl. I want to help. I want to give back, man. But if you got it covered, you got it covered. And I think a lot of people also need to consider the fact that it's Monday. I doubt this is my solid state drive, but I'm gonna I'm gonna look anyway. No idea what the. It's very strange. Bear with me here for a minute, guys. Let me. What do I have in here? Oh, yeah. This is not what I was hoping for. Whoops. Okay, so what I've got here, you guys might be interested in anyway. That Blackmagic HDMI capture card is Thunderbolt 2, and I bought a Thunderbolt cable. Cost me 20 bucks, and the cable doesn't have the right ends on it. I actually have to go Thunderbolt 2 to Thunderbolt 3. So I bought a cable for another 20 bucks that goes Thunderbolt 2 to Thunderbolt 3, but that doesn't work. The laptop won't recognize the Blackmagic device. So what I needed to order, so that's $40 in cables. I needed to order just a straight through Thunderbolt 2 cable for another $20, so that's $60 in cables, and then a $60 Thunderbolt 2 to Thunderbolt 3 adapter. And then maybe that Blackmagic device will work. And the Blackmagic device was $150. So how much do I have into that now? $210, $260. Also, I could ideally use the Dell Xps 15 to stream when I'm in Michigan and not have to bring all the equipment with me. And I can probably return the cables to Amazon, but I've thrown away all the packaging. And I hate the idea of just sending the cable back thinking I might just need it one day. But this is why Thunderbolt never took off. Those cables are that expensive because of the royalties Intel charges, whereas USB has no royalties. And as a result, very few manufacturers outside of Apple ever embraced it. So it's a learning curve, and it's an expensive one, but I hope this will work. If the laptop had Thunderbolt 2 built into it instead of Thunderbolt 3, I'd have been set. But unfortunately, or fortunately, the laptop is Thunderbolt 3 and the Blackmagic device is Thunderbolt 2, and just a cable that goes from 2 to 3 is not enough for that to work. The other thing I picked up is something I absolutely don't need. I think I have an illness, but this flash drive, it was on sale at Amazon. It's 512 gigs from PNY for $80. $80, 512 gigs, USB 3.0 flash drive, which they claim read speeds of 400 megabytes per second. Writes are a little slow at 250, but it's $80. $80 for 512 gigs, and it's a regular size flash drive. It's not a big monster. I don't understand using Thunderbolt. I'm using Thunderbolt because I want to output. So I've got these Magewell USB 3.0 HDMI adapters, and the quality is not the same. Ask anybody who stuck around the channel before. It was so graciously, Colin Hilton contributed to this $900 4-input capture card that I'm using. It's PCI Express on the streaming computer right now. And it's a world of difference from those USB 3.0 external captures, which would get hot, and they would freeze up. So I really don't want to use them in Michigan. The video quality's, I've been spoiled now that I've got the capture card, but I can't put a capture card in the laptop. And I hate to go backwards. Through the generous contributions that are being made by viewers, I can afford to improve or to make some experimentation to improve the video quality. And Blackmagic is primarily used by people that are far more into more professional video production than I am. But if I want to get there, I need to start using the right equipment, although it's really intended for Apple products. So I'll have to try it and see. So this is the flash drive. It's got a little weight to it. Oh, that's twice I've dropped. I'm surprised it doesn't lock. So I guess when you plug it in, you better hold it by this, because if you hold it by this, you're just going to slide it closed. When you're sliding it into the computer, it'll just close on you. So that's kind of a stupid design. I like that it does not have a cap, so you don't have to worry about losing the cap. And I will test this to make sure that it reads and writes all 512 gig. I don't think it's going to be counterfeit, but $80 was a price I said, I don't need that, but that's so cheap, I better pick it up. I was looking to see if the camera will focus on it. There it goes. And I just like how small it is. I like that it's just a normal size flash drive. A lot of these large capacity flash drives are also physically larger in size. I'm really curious if this is going to work with the Blackmagic card. So let me just grab that real quick and test it, because everything's going so well today. I thought, why not just strike while the iron's hot. So here we've got the laptop, and let's clear some space. And let's fire this bad boy up. Let's move this stuff a little bit out of the way here. Here we go. And let me grab the Blackmagic converter. Boy, I hope this works. If not, Amazon is really good with returns, and maybe I'll just throw it all back in and get a refund on it. But I'm hopeful. So this is the USB. This is just USB 2 to USB 2. And the reason I need that, what did I say, USB 2? Thunderbolt 2, sorry. This is Thunderbolt 2 to Thunderbolt 2. That's a Thunderbolt 2 connector. That's what it looks like. And we're going to plug that in. And it only goes in one way. And there's plastic on this cable that can come off. Like this. And then we go to this adapter, which will convert Thunderbolt 2 to Thunderbolt 3. Looks like we've got some documentation and stickers. You know how important that is. Just set it up here. Oh, it's a lot smaller than I thought it would. Looked on the box. That's a good thing, because we do want it to be as portable as possible. And then it looks like we got some Velcro wire management. All right, now that is USB 3.1 Type-C, also Thunderbolt 3. That they share the same connector, and they share the same controller in many cases. So this laptop is advertised with Thunderbolt 3 into the USB 3.1. And then we plug in from Thunderbolt 2. That's why I needed a straight through Thunderbolt 2 cable. And of course, it's got to be on the other side of the laptop. That's just Murphy's Law. But let's plug it in, and let's see if it'll at least see the Blackmagic adapter. Ah, this is new. Blackmagic Ultra Studio Mini Recorder. Always connect. This is the furthest I've ever gotten with this, by the way. Software update required, update now. So right now it's going online, it's on Wi-Fi. Let me grab a spare camera. Let me plug something into this. So let me grab a camera. Here we go. That's still installing, and while that's installing, I'll grab, so the cameras use a mini HDMI output on the camera, and then it goes to a full-size HDMI input here on the capture, or even on the capture card in there, and even on the USB 3 capture cards I've got. You can see how expensive this gets to just do simple YouTube videos. You know, the skills required to be a computer technician are in no way related to the skills required to video production. They are completely different skill sets, and it's a real struggle for me, but I'm enjoying the learning process. I'm just not enjoying the expense, but that's okay. Let's try plugging this HDMI cable here into the side of the camera and turn the camera on. All right, and then we'll grab the other end of this cable and plug it right here into the Blackmagic box. I'm so excited this is working. And then we just wait for this progress bar to complete, and then I should be able to open like OBS Studio and ideally see the output of this camera. So we're going to find out here in just a moment. I don't have to worry about that Blackmagic box dropping because it's made out of like steel. Whoops. Which just unplugged. I'm running out of counter space. Hold on a second. Let me try this again. Yeah, that thing is steel. It's not going anywhere. And I'm afraid it got updated or disconnected during an update, and that might not have a good effect. So let's just try something here and see what happens. Blackmagic device. Well, definitely not a good start. Properties. Nothing. Okay. Port 1. It does see the Blackmagic. Says it's connected. Power mode, unknown power. Now, disconnect it for a moment. Then connect it back in. Let's see, I can still see it. Unfortunately, I don't see any lights or indicators that this is on or functional. There doesn't appear to be anything to tell me what's happening. And then whatever that software update was that I apparently interrupted when the device fell, hopefully that was not a firmware update. But again, I'm not worried about it yet. I don't need this until September. It's not a good way to kick things off, though. I will say that. So I should be getting some type of an input here. So it sees my web camera that's built into the laptop, but I want better quality video than that. And when I go to the Blackmagic, it just simply isn't showing me anything. So I can try the Blackmagic software. Blackmagic Design, Blackmagic Desktop Video Utility. And this is what I was getting before. No desktop video device detected. And I'm a bit concerned because that update seemed to be pretty important, and that disconnection stopped that update. So I'm going to restart the laptop and see if it'll refresh on its own. Adam says, open the Blackmagic settings and change from SDI to HDMI. Brilliant idea, and I will do that just as soon as we reboot. I just want to see if whatever that software update is continues, or if it gives up. So far, so good. So this is the Dell XPS 15 update available. That is probably for the graphics driver. Yeah, that's the Intel driver's assistant. That has nothing to do with the... All right, let's open the Blackmagic Studio again. I think it's under Blackmagic Desktop Video Utility. I don't see any options anywhere to change the input. There's just nothing to click on here. However, there's a couple other utilities. There's the multi-bridge utility. I don't know what this does. This is all new to me. There's profiles, devices, preferences. It's shaded out. This just appears to be some sort of a diagram. It doesn't seem that this is just a piece of information. It doesn't seem to actually do anything other than show you a diagram. Media Express. Okay, this looks good. How do I change the input? Device, no device connected. File, capture now. Yeah, it's just not seeing anything, and I don't see any option with regards to HDMI or... Let's go back into OBS, see if OBS offers us anything here. I'll disconnect it here for a minute and then plug it back in. I was really hopeful. Seemed like it was doing good. Let's look in the properties of the Blackmagic device. It's not even letting me select it. So I'm not getting any option with regards to the input on this device. What bothers me the most right now is whatever that update was got interrupted, and I don't know what kicked that update off and how to manually kick that update to go again. But it is definitely not appearing. But it was making progress. I've gotten further with it than I had in the past, because in the past, it wouldn't even recognize it as a Blackmagic device. And that was because I didn't have the, the cable was just Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt 2. And this requires an actual physical adapter to make that conversion. And whether or not that update, whatever that was, has anything to do with this, I don't yet know. But one of the things, a lot of times people, they're shopping around for best price. But I have this peace of mind that even if that was a firmware update that I interrupted, this is no big deal for me to send this back to Amazon, either for a refund or an exchange, and they're not going to hassle me. And like I said, I don't need it till September. It's an inconvenience, but it's not like I wasted any money yet. Not yet. So when I pay a couple dollars more for something, that's why. I'm getting that peace of mind and hoping for the best and expecting the worst, hoping I don't need to return the device, that I've ordered everything correctly to begin with. But I am struggling because I got into something that I didn't think was going to be this complicated, between ordering the right cables and adapter for what I thought would just be a faster, better video quality adapter for, when I'm on the road, to take it with me and not have to bring a whole rig setup with me when I travel. Because I believe the laptop should have more than enough power. This box should have a lot more power than those USB 3 capture cards I was using. And let me just remove this device because it's we don't need it. Like I said, that I can add the webcam. The webcam is down here on this laptop. And just don't know why it's not being seen. I don't know. It's definitely sensing it's being plugged in. Yeah, I mean, it's initializing. If I go into the device manager, we should be able to see it in there. Cameras, integrated webcam, not quite sure what it would be under. Sound and video devices, maybe? Nope, it's not under that. It's not a biometric device, it's not a Bluetooth device. Firmware, no. It's not a USB. Well, it could be under USB because it is plugged into a USB 3 port that also is Thunderbolt. Maybe it's under that. Nope. Nope. I don't know. It's definitely reacting to being plugged in, and it's giving me the sounds as though it's initializing properly. It's not a display adapter. It's not a human interface device. That would be like a keyboard or a mouse. So I don't know where this Blackmagic device is listed. And yet, down here I've got a Thunderbolt connection, and it says attach Thunderbolt devices. Under Thunderbolt Controller 1, it says Blackmagic Design Connected. See, this is what I say. There's never been an instance where customers ever asked me to set up cameras and stuff for them. So this is a whole new learning curve for me, and this is what'll keep you humble. Just when you think you've got control of everything, you know, it'll go down a path you're not familiar with. But this is how we learn, and it's a little nerve-wracking sometimes. And you know, you get to see that live here on the channel, which is what I try to emphasize. Is the real anxiety and the real angst in dealing with the whole learning experience. And I praise anybody who's got the guts to enter into this. You know, it can be very nerve-wracking sometimes. And what's interesting, OBS has an option to add an input device. And Blackmagic device is its own separate input, which I thought was very interesting. But then nothing drops down. What if I said not a Blackmagic? What if I just said it was a regular video device? What if I said, let's get rid of that one. And we go with right-click, add video capture. And then it'll probably pull up the web camera. Let's see. Yeah, there's the integrated web camera there. And if I hit the down arrow, there's no other option for me, unfortunately. So the Blackmagic is its own thing. And of course, if I turn the video capture device on or off, let's see, let's go to properties. There's the integrated web camera. Transform, fit to screen. So then that's what that looks like to me. And that's the webcam that's right down here on the bottom. And that's not the camera I want. I want the camera over here. And everything seems to be working, so I will have to play with this later. I was hoping it would plug and play. Like I said, maybe it would have if whatever that update was that was taking forever would have completed. For all I know, it could have been an update to the adapter, or it may have been an update to the recorder, or it may have been an update just to the software, which really wouldn't matter. Either way, that's something I'll mess with later. I don't need to mess with that while I'm live. And just to make sure this camera is on and we have a picture. Blackmagic, one more time, Blackmagic. It is supposed to be plug and play, at least if I had an Apple, according to the reviews. This multi-bridge utility, what is that? Oh, that's the... Yeah, that doesn't offer me any information. Digital to audio workflow, what good is that? Blackmagic desktop video utility. And that says it doesn't detect a device, even though Thunderbolt says it does detect a device, which doesn't make any sense. And then Media Express, which is, those are the 4 utilities you get from Blackmagic with their software. So I don't know if any of you guys have experience with this and can lend me some advice, but it says there's no device connected, so something's missing. And Stephen has provided me with Blackmagic support. Yeah, I might have to just give them a call and find out what's going on. Last, from the forums that I've read about, Blackmagic does not support going Thunderbolt 2 to Thunderbolt 3. That they know it can work, but they're not putting their name or support behind any specific manufacturer. So they're just telling you, if you want to go down that road, we're not going to assist you, which is really frustrating because they must know which adapters have worked with their cards. They must know it. But for probably reasons of liability, maybe, they're not making any recommendation publicly, officially. So I'll play with that a bit later. It's all right. I'll get it figured out. And if I don't, I send it all back. Like I said, the peace of mind that I have purchasing from both Amazon and Newegg makes me pretty bold in how I move forward, and I don't think everything's lost and it was all a waste of money. Try to avoid those kind of thoughts, because they're not useful. They don't get you where you want to be. So put that away. Put that up there, and we'll come at that a bit later. Let me just scroll through the chat here for a moment and see if I've missed anybody pointing out something obvious I was missing. Let's take a look here. Check the task manager and make sure that the Blackmagic entries are enabled. I don't know why they wouldn't be. Desktop Video Setup is the app that lets me change SDMI to HDMI. Do you have that software? If not, maybe use the SD card drivers that came with it. I used the SD card drivers. That's exactly what I used. I didn't download anything from the website. Carrie, you can get the update from the link that Stephen provided. Oh, is that a link to the software update? Is that what that was? That looked like a link just to support from what I read of it. But let me click on it here real quick. Yeah, that says latest downloads. Blackmagic Camera 6.1. I don't have that camera. DaVinci Resolve, I don't use that. So what I've got is the Blackmagic Mini Recorder. And I'm going through this whole list. I don't see anything for that. DaVinci Resolve, lots of DaVinci Resolve. Blackmagic Camera 6.0 Beta, that's for the URSA Mini Pro Plus Generation 4. I don't have that. Video Assist 4K, this is not 4K. Well, this list goes on and on and on and on and on. Capture and playback. Let's do that. I just see a bunch of desktop video for Mac. For 8K, this is really high-end. What was I looking for? Well, that's all right. I'll just have to look into it later. I was hoping somebody was familiar with it, but if you guys are just guessing, I can guess all by myself. I'm not worried about that. I have no shortage of guessing on my own. So I was just hoping maybe somebody had used one. But anyway, what are you going to do? It'll either work or it'll get sent back, and I'll have to try and find another video capture solution that works better than those USB 3.0 capture cards, because those, if I have to use them, I will, but I really feel like that's a step backwards. I want the channel to continue to grow and improve on the video quality, but it's a little discouraging, you know. A lot of the reviews were left by people with Apple computers, and they just plug it in and it works. And Apple has always traditionally been the go-to for media creators because it's just better designed for that, although inside of it is weaker hardware than what I'm using. So it should work. It'll be a little bit of a learning curve for me. What are you gonna do? So inside this case, we get back to the build now. We've got a fan controller back here, which is a bit odd to see in this day and age. We've got a bunch of the front port umbilicals coming up through a wire management hole here, which may or may not be the right place depending on where these cables are going to run. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and pull them out because I have a sneaky suspicion that this one, for example, may need to go up through here. And this one, well, this one's probably okay. This one will probably stay back here. This is probably power for the fan controller and any LEDs this case has. And we have a power switch, a reset switch, and a hard drive LED. What we don't have is a power LED, and that's probably because there's an LED, well, whatever this is, there is something really sticky on it, and it's driving me crazy. So I gotta get that off of there, whatever that is. Let's see. No idea why that would be sticky. That's weird. Adam says the Magewell HDMI to USB 3 is pretty rock solid. No, it isn't. That's what I was using. So you can always tell when somebody's new here because they would have seen, you know, they would have been with me in my frustrations of losing the stream constantly from those Magewell capture cards. They're just not very good. And they get really, really hot, and they're just not reliable. So I need something else, something better. Oh, well, now I know why it's sticky. This was in the case, and it says 12-volt power input. Please consult the manual before connecting this cable. And whatever stuff they're using for the sticky, it's all over everything. It's awful. And it didn't stick to the thing that they stuck it to, which was that SATA cable. Why? Oh, I guess it was. Yeah, it was. Never mind. It was the SATA cable that was sticky. But why would they use a glue like that that just stays? You know, why couldn't they, for example, wrap the cable around, wrap the label around it to itself so there's nothing sticky on the device itself? It's still sticky. It's still on there. Whatever that is, it's not coming off. And I don't want to use a solvent on here because it'll take the paint right off. It'll actually melt right through the plastic. So you either stick with it sticky or, you know, end up getting this black plastic all over everything as it comes off from the solvent. So we'll just leave that as is for now. Okay. Our open box power supply. Epiphan Video has really nice USB capture cards. 400 bucks. Epiphan. Let me take a look at what that looks like. I've never even heard of them. Ooh, $500. I see here's one grab-and-go USB video capture for VGA, DVA, and HDMI up to 1080 at 60 frames per second. That might be good. Is that Elgato? No, it's Epiphan. Never heard of them. Reviews look, well, it's only 22 reviews, but averaging 4.4 stars. It's going to require an adapter, though. It's DVI natively, which sucks. Boy, I wish there was a USB 3.1. Maybe it's just a little early for that. I'll have to keep looking. Blackmagic makes you wish you had a Mac. No, it makes me wish I didn't have Blackmagic, and then I chose somebody else that perhaps is a little more up to speed with things. So let's prep the board. So let's clear some space out here. This is all that device, the Thunderbolt 2 to 3 adapter, or 3 to 2, depending on your perspective. Set that over there. And let's move the case. Let's see. Let's just move it back here for right now. Just put it here. There we go. And I'm just going to slide this up a little bit so I can bring this up onto the counter, because if that falls, that would be bad. It's really important that you have enough workspace that you're not, well, as you witness here, some, you know, I've just through my hands dropped the flash drive, but stuff like that I'm not worried about. I would be worried if I damaged the case or scratched it. Clearly, I wouldn't want to drop any of the expensive components, and you certainly don't want to drop the mechanical drive. We've got a mechanical drive here, which I could quickly install. This will just take some moment. I'll just take the hard drive tray out. And let's get this opened up. And it just takes a moment to get this installed. This is the 4 terabyte Western Digital Black, and it very easily installs. You want the part with the cables, where the cables are going to go. You want that sticking out through the back. So we'll just, it's interesting. They put the pins together here instead of separating them out. I've never seen a company do that before. Very strange. But I guess they're doing that so you can't install the drive the wrong direction. That would be my guess. And then those panels open. And that pulls the pins so that the drive can sit directly into the track. And we can align the holes and then close those back down. And that is a nice toolless design that secures the drive, and then we slide the drive back in and it just locks right back in. Did you get all that? Super easy. Super, super easy. Let me just make sure this other camera's powered down. There we go. Barnacle used the expensive AVIO stuff. He ditched them and went to the Elgato. Interesting. Okay, so let's take a look. Obviously, I'm not going to install the graphics card for a while, so we can put that away for right now. Let's just get that out of the way. Definitely don't want to drop that one. I can laugh, because otherwise I'll just cry. All right, so here we've got the Z390 AORUS Ultra motherboard, and in the motherboard box we will have the I/O shield, which would be a good thing to install into the case right now. We got lots of stickers, some documentation. And there's our SATA cables, M.2 standoffs. Should be an I/O shield there. Maybe it's in the book. book has the driver. No I/O shield unless, well, we got a Go Faster sticker from GIGABYTE or AORUS. It's times like this that I'm glad you're getting to see everything filmed, recorded live, as you witness just a series of events that are unusual, whether it's packages not arriving, power supply that's supposed to be new, presumably not new. This doesn't have an I/O shield, probably because it's already built onto the board, so let's just check that. Very easy now to be sort of sensitive to going, oh, now that's missing. It's probably, I'm guessing it's part of the board. It is. There's an I/O shield. No panic. All right. So as far as that goes, I don't have to prep the case anymore because that's part of the motherboard, and that's always welcome in my world. And we'll just pull the plastic off of the heat sinks here on the board and make sure everything's exposed. I like that all the M.2 sockets have heat shields or heat sinks. That's a nice touch. Just looking to see if there's any more plastic on here. When it comes time to installing your M2 drive, you don't just pick any socket. You have to make sure you're picking the right socket, because you could have an M2 SATA drive or you could have an M2 NVMe drive, and some of the sockets are going to share ports with some of the SATA sockets back here on the back. So these may become unavailable when certain ones of these are used. So if you have one M.2 drive like we do right now, and you've got 3 places to put it, how do you decide where it goes? Well, what I would do is look in the motherboard manual and see which of these supports NVMe, because the drive we're going to install is a Samsung 970 EVO. Now this is a non-volatile memory express, or what we call NVMe, that requires an M2 socket that supports NVMe. So when we open up the manual, we can go right to the storage section, and then we can read the details about which of those M2 sockets support NVMe and which ones steal from the SATA sockets and which SATA sockets they steal from. So looking here on the motherboard manual, this is all explained here on this page, here and here, explaining that, for example, let me get my glasses so I can read it accurately. For example, it states, so you can look over my shoulder. There's this connector called M2M, M2A, and M2P. I don't know where they get these names. I really don't know. But it does tell you that if you use them, what impact it has on the SATA ports here, whether they'll be available or unavailable. And what I'm looking for is one that won't impact the SATA ports, even though we're not using them. I like to keep them available if possible. And I want it to be PCI Express. So here, right here it says, if I use the M2M connector, then I will lose SATA ports. In PCIe mode, I will lose SATA ports 4 and 5. If I use the PCIe SSD here on the M2A connector, I don't lose any SATA ports at all. And if I use the PCIe, which is basically it's I don't use any of these SATA ports here. So the only one is M2M. So the question is, which one's M2M, which one's... So it shows a diagram. This one says M2M, M2A, and M2P. And I don't know if that's the top down. I assume it is, that this is the one nearest the CPU. This is the one between, you know, right in the center of the board. Well, the second to the bottom. And then the short one, which is M2P. It would be my option to choose the SATA, the M.2 port that's furthest away from the heat. So the most amount of heat is going to generate right in this vicinity with the CPU and the video card. So that's a really bad location, just from a heat perspective. Also hard to get at if you want to replace it or upgrade it when you've got a big video card in your way. There is a note here about the PCI Express ×4 that says it shares bandwidth. The PCI Express by 4 slot operates at up to X2 mode when a PCIe SSD is installed in the M2P adapter. So that means if we install the NVMe drive in either the top socket or the bottom socket, with the top socket we lose SATA ports 4 and 5. With the bottom socket, the little PCI Express by 4 slots on the board will run it by 2. And if I choose the middle socket, it has no negative impact on anything, unless it's SATA. But we're running PCI Express. So PCI Express in the M2A connector, we have no consequences. We don't sacrifice anything. So using the bottom connector or the top connector, we sacrifice either SATA ports or the bandwidth on the PCI Express by 4 adapters, which may not even be used. But it could create a support call, you know, a year or two in the future when the customer adds something and wants to know why it's not operating as fast as he's expecting it to. So to avoid that, and since I've got to install it in a particular socket, why not just install it in the socket where there's no consequences and use the M2A socket, which I believe is this socket right here. It is. It says M2A. See if I can show you. If you look at the socket right here, it says M2A right by my finger. So that's the socket we want to use. And what I'm going to do is grab my little Phillips driver that's magnetized, which I have right here. Now that's a special screw specifically for the heat shield here. And then there's some tape that we pull off to expose this thermal pad, which will help keep things cool. But we want to remove that tape. Now there is no standoff installed. This will install numerous size M.2 drives. And so because of that, you need to be able to move the standoff to fit whatever size M.2 drive you have. Now the most common size you're going to run into is called a 2280. That means it's 22 millimeters wide, 80 millimeters long. Oh, this board has built-in Wi-Fi. And here in the motherboard box, wow, each screw has its own package. 3 packages for 3 little screws. I guess that's one way to keep you from losing them. But where's the standoffs? There's 1 standoff, 2 standoffs, 3. Okay, so we have 3 standoffs in 3 packages and 3 matching screws in 3 packages. So that's a total of 6. So we'll set those down, and then we're going to bring this back up. And let me grab some scissors so I can open that up and get it installed. So let's do that. So here is the standoff. I disagree with this technique. They're wasting a lot of materials, a lot of planet's resources. This should have just been pre-installed in the 80 position here on the board. It's marked. The first position is 42, the second position is 60, and the third position furthest away from the socket is 80 millimeters. And the screw doesn't have, or the standoff doesn't have any ridges on it, but it does have slots carved out in it, so you should be able to grab like a little flat bladed screwdriver just to turn that a little bit. It doesn't have to be super tight, but you don't want it to come out when you remove the screw to remove or replace the storage drive. Now, speaking of the storage drive, we've got that right here. As I mentioned, it's the 970 EVO. And I'm gonna have to cut the tape on this to get it open. So let's do that. There we go. And that's all we want right there. That's the storage drive. And it's gonna go in to the socket a bit on an angle, and you're gonna push it forward and it locks, it just sort of seats in. And then we can hold it down, and then in this other baggie, we have a small screw, very, very tiny screw. Be careful, you don't want to drop it and lose it. And so using a magnetized screwdriver is very important. And all that screw is going to do is it's just going to hold the drive down and secure it into position. Then finally, we can put the heatsink back on it. Be careful when you put the heatsink back on. You don't want to slide it into the socket where the electronics are. There's a slot just above that that tab slides into. And then I'm going to grab that little screw that was there. And then we lock that heatsink down on top of the lockdown M.2 drive, and that keeps it much cooler than it would be. This is optional. You don't have to use the heat shield. It certainly never hurts to use it. So if you've got it, use it. No harm in using it. Seems silly to me that I have to open up two separate plastic bags for the little teeny tiny screw and standoff. Absolutely don't agree with that packaging philosophy there. Let's see, what have I been missing in the chat? Soren Rasmussen's contributed 50 Danish krona. He says, hi, I'm watching this on my new Asus Strix Hero 2 laptop. Very good. Boz Peters contributed €2. He says, hey, great stream again. Thank you. Michael Lee has contributed $11. Michael, thank you for contributing to the channel. Terry Scobles contributed 10 Australian dollars. He says, great videos, Carey. I enjoy the content. Received your case badge last week. It's currently 5:35 in the morning here in Western Australia, so I don't always catch the live feeds this early. So thank you guys for your contributions and for supporting the channel, of course. Now, we can install the CPU next, and here we've got the Intel Core i7-9700K. You can see everything is sealed, new in the box. I want to emphasize that. A lot of times on these videos you guys watch on other channels, they're edited in such a way that it's hard to know that what they're doing is real. You know, it's hard to know that they're not taking parts they already have used before and are building with a level of confidence because of what happened off camera. So for me, I like to just keep things real. I like to keep the feelings, the emotions that you go through in your build. You use brand new parts, never been taken out of the box. There's an assumption or presumption that it's all going to work okay. But whether it is or it isn't doesn't doesn't have any impact, or rather your attitude won't have any impact on that. So it's best to just remain positive and remain calm, and if there's problems, all problems can be resolved. Yeah, you know, you might delay being able to turn the machine on. So what? You know, because once you're done and it works, I can assure you, you're going to want to build another one. And the more anxiety you have over it, the better that feeling is, that rush of fulfillment, dopamine or whatever it is in the brain that gets released is just, words don't describe it. So to me, it's not a big deal. I really don't have any concern about things not working because I know I can fix anything. It's not a big deal. And most of the time when I build, I very rarely run into a bad part. It happens, but it happens so rarely. And when you think about how many computers I build, it's not like somebody on Reddit going, hey, I built a machine, so everything's going to be fine. You know, I've been doing this, you know, it's hard to believe. I've been doing this almost 30 years on a professional level, and it's different when you're building a computer for somebody else. It really is. There's a lot of responsibility and accountability that you are voluntarily taking on that you are directly responsible for. If you think it's nerve-wracking to build one that's your own, imagine doing it for somebody else, and they have an expected delivery date. You know, they expect it to be done right, and you know, for me, I just enjoy it. I just really enjoy what I do. So I don't know if that's an acquired taste or not, really. But I think if you you know, have the inclination to like to put puzzles together, or you know, see how things work, it can be very rewarding to build your own computer, especially considering the importance they play in our lives nowadays, with how often the computer is used for so many different things, be it entertainment to education to just passing time, or you know, getting a job. All can be possible with these tools. So there's our CPU. That's the, see if the camera will focus on the 9700K. Come on, baby. There it is. And we're going to lift up the CPU socket here. I'm not getting the overhead rig out for this today, guys. It's just too much going on. But I have covered this in countless videos before, so if you need that kind of close-up detail, my video library is chock full of close-ups that are more detailed than you would see in person. You know, lenses and lighting, the likes of which are far superior to your eyeballs. So if you need that kind of detail, it does exist in other videos. So let's just close this lever down, and then the top should pop, and it did. And then we hold on to that. I've said this a million times, but this needs to be held on to. If the board ever has to go back for returns for repair at any time, you'd obviously send it without the CPU, and those little pins underneath the CPU are very delicate, and they need to be protected. If failure to do so renders your warranty invalid. So hopefully you never need this, but if you do need it, that you'll be able to find it. Now, with regards to the cooler, we've got something a bit different here. This parts list was put together with the help of Catherine Anna Hauserman there in the chat room, and Catherine just puts wonderful parts lists together. And I know she's a fan of this Dark Rock 4. I know she's tried to convince me to use it in other builds, and I was reluctant only because, I'll be honest, I've been so happy with the Hyper 212 EVO, it's hard for me to move away from it. And then I tried that Mugen 5, and the only reason I tried that Mugen 5 from Scythe was they sent it to me for free. And I was so impressed with it, it blew the Hyper 212 out of the water with regards to the ease of installation and how well that it cooled. So given that, this Dark Rock 4, I think is what it's called, from Be Quiet, is supposed to be the bee's knees when it comes to coolers. Apart from the fact that they've painted it black, I don't really see much difference in its design. It doesn't seem very unique. It looks like a standard air tower cooler. I don't know if the installation will be easy or not. I find it difficult to believe that anything can be easier in installing a tower cooler on a socket 1151 than Sky's Mugen 5 design. So I think right out of the gate, I've got a bad attitude. I think this is gonna suck to install compared to the Mugen 5. Now, compared to the EVO 212, I don't know. And at the end of the day, I don't think it's gonna cool any quieter or significantly better than the 212 EVO from, the Hyper 212 EVO from Cooler Master or the Mugen 5 from Sky. I think the difference in cooling is gonna be negligible. I could be wrong, but like I said, I got a bad attitude about this because I tend to lean towards things I'm familiar with. It makes me more efficient. My expectations are properly set, and it looks like I know what I'm doing, right? You guys see me go, wow, look at him slap that together like it was nothing. That's because I did it 100 times before. I've never done this before, so I'm not gonna be fast at it. And if it's not easy for the first time, I'll probably be reluctant to ever use it again unless it somehow, I don't know, miraculously cools the CPU to a point that's unbelievable, which I don't think it's gonna do. But again, these are the same kind of thoughts that I deal with when I'm talking to clients about part selection with regards to you know, whether they don't want to order from a certain company because they had bad luck with the company, or they don't want to order certain parts from a manufacturer because they ordered other parts from the manufacturer, even though they might be totally unrelated. Because of that bad experience, they don't want to reward that company with their business. So we have to deal with a bit of that in the business when dealing with customers. And for the most part, it's not your job, in my opinion, to try and change a customer's mind. If a customer doesn't like a product for any reason, it's my job to offer them alternatives, not to get them to agree with me. But remember, I have to support this when I build it. And I'm not just going to build whatever the customer wants me to build if it means that potentially I'm going to lose a ton of money in support endlessly into the future and have a customer who's upset with the quality of their rig and they're going to blame me for it. So my responsibility is to find the customer alternatives that I can stand behind and aren't going to burn me financially, but at the same time respect the customer's wishes and needs with regards to any limitations or reservations they have with regards to certain products or manufacturers. If that's clear enough for you. It's not a question of the customer always being right or not. It's a question of how much liability I'm willing to take on reasonably. It's not unusual for me to get calls from customers that I've never heard from in 18 months, and they'll call me at 9:30 at night on a Saturday night as though I'm their personal tech support, and they think nothing of interrupting my weekend evening because all they care about is they have a problem and I'm the guy they trust to fix it. Now, I'm flattered they trust me to fix it, but I am upset that they think it's cool to call me late at night on a weekend. In fact, late at night at all, unless we've made previous arrangements or they're on a retainer and they're paying for that. It is profoundly disrespectful and inconsiderate. And so sometimes these customers you help can come back to you and expect that help 24/7. And I'm very specific about offering that as a service to people who want to pay for it. But for people to just imply it, it's a very uncomfortable situation to be placed in with a customer to say, hey, don't be calling me at 9 o'clock at night on a Saturday unless you pay me for that in advance. You put me on a retainer, and generally these clients are not in that financial position. So this box looks like it's already been opened. That's interesting. I think it just kind of came loose in packaging, but because of the other, with the power supply being open, now I'm sort of sensitive to that. It's a very unusual case fan design or CPU fan design here. The frame is very minimal on this. Very thin fan. A lot of blades. Here we've got documentation, which is ridiculous. Are you kidding me? That's not a good sign. Corsair's documentation is one narrow page. What is this? We'll find out. It's not starting out well. Something's heavy. What do we have in here? Oh, these cheap wire hangers for the fan. Any manufacturer that uses these, I despise these little, I don't even know if you can pick them up, they're so thin. Well, the reason is this computer needs to survive shipping, and these aren't going to do well holding that fan in place, depending on the distance it's going. Now, the Mugen 5 also uses these wire hangers, and it's definitely something I have commented on and suggested an improvement. This is where the Hyper 212 EVO from Cooler Master is far superior, in that it's using a far superior mounting mechanism that will definitely withstand the rigors of shipping far better than these cheap little wire hangers, which are easy to install, but they also fall off real easy. And that's my concern. But it is what it is. For the price of these coolers, I think they could do better than that. If you're not shipping it, it's probably not going to be a problem. Now the cooler itself looks like we've got a screwdriver included. That's a nice touch. Really nice. This is, okay. I'm starting to cheer up, warm up a little bit here. We've got a Be Quiet branded Phillips screwdriver that's included. Now, the only time I've ever seen this before is with the Mugen 5, where the screwdriver can be used to build the whole computer. A lot of people are just blinded by Noctua. I don't know what this blind cultism is with Noctua, but even Noctua, it gives you throwaway Allen wrench style temporary tools, and yet charge you some of the most amount of money for a cooler that any manufacturer charges. And while I realize they put a lot of quality into the fan and the bearings and how that's all designed, the heatsink design isn't really unique or different. And the tool they give you is very cheap and increases the profit margin. So just because you're paying more doesn't mean you're getting a superior product. And, you know, buying a Noctua fan is one thing, but buying the Noctua fan and heatsink and getting this cheap little tool and then overpaying, in my opinion, for it, I think there's wiser ways you can spend your money. And that's why you don't really see me using the Noctuas very much. This is a nice touch. I like to see this. So good points for Be Quiet for including that. I like that the heatsink has been painted black. However, it's not a make or break deal for me. Like I personally wouldn't buy a cooler based on color. I'm going to buy a cooler based on how well it's going to work, what its price is, and how difficult it is to install. The color would be one of the last factors. So I would gladly install a Mugen 5 in silver knowing how easy it is, even if it means it's not going to color match. When I got into computers early on, color was never a factor because you're staring at the screen. All your colors are on your screen. You're not looking at the computer. There's no information being conveyed there. You're using your keyboard, your mouse, perhaps even a microphone to communicate with the computer, and the screen is how the computer communicates back to you. The box that is the computer itself is a necessary device that enables all of this to occur. So to gussy it up with lights and windows and color matching, it is definitely an attitude and a perspective of younger people who sort of take for granted that the computer is going to do all these things they need it to do, and then spend this time and attention and focus on aesthetics. And it was completely the other way around for the last 30 years. This is sort of a new trend. I'll call it a fad. I think it'll probably go away. But as long as people are willing to pay more money for things that don't matter, the manufacturers are going to be happy to sell it to you and advertise it. And people who buy it will be always telling you, you know, how smart they are because they bought it. Very rarely does somebody admit they shouldn't have bought something. They'll say, oh yeah, it's great. Otherwise they feel stupid. So You know, the old expression, don't ask a barber if you need a haircut, kind of applies here. Now, I will say that the fins on the radiator here seem better constructed. They don't seem to bend as easily as either the Mugen or the Hyper 212 EVO, but then why would you be grabbing it and bending them anyway? But still, quality seems very, very nice here. So I don't want to be all negative about it. I want to be objective about my views on this. It's interesting that the design is different on this side than it is on this side. I don't know why. There's some weird design element going on. And because the Be Quiet logo is written in such a bold way, the direction in which you install it is probably going to matter, because if you care what color it is, you probably care about little things like that honestly no ordinary person would ever notice. You'd have to physically point it out. So look, ultimately you're the person who's got to be happy with your purchase, and if things like what color it is or what direction the words face matter to you, who am I to argue with that? But when it comes to building a reliable computer, it plays no role. It plays no role in performance, and it plays no role in reliability. So it's not important to me in a business environment when work is trying to get done. And you might say, well, that kind of takes the fun out of it. To me, the fun is in using the computer. To make things color matched, I have to pay more money and to hunt down certain parts to get the right colors. That's not why I build computers. I never got into this business as an artist. I am far from an artist. I want to build the best computers I can build. And honestly, apart from, nice clean cable management, I could give a rat's behind what color the circuit board is, which way the words face. That's just weird. It's weird to me, coming from having no computer, to then saying it's important to me to have lights and colors that don't matter. It's definitely, it must be something you attain or acquire growing up with computers instead of growing up without them. It must affect that attitude of priority. I can't imagine how else that occurs. It is a very strange phenomenon to me as a technician that people could potentially call me to fix their RGB lighting. It would be one of the weirdest support calls I've ever gotten. All right, so now when it comes to placing this, is it going to go on? So we want the fan to blow out towards the back of the computer, right? So that means that this is probably going to go on this way, where the Be Quiet logo then would be seen through the window like this, because if I put it on, it would be upside down. If I put it on this way, if I put it on this way, then when I mount the motherboard here in this case and it sits straight up, the logo would be upside down. So I'm assuming that it would have to go on this way, which means the fan would attach on this side, but if it does, I'm just kind of dry fitting it to get an idea here. If that goes on that way, will it interfere with the RAM? And it looks like we're going to be pretty close. That is a thin fan, so actually we're probably going to be just fine, regardless of how tall the RAM is. But it's something to think about when you're putting your build together, and certainly something like a person like Catherine would consider when she's putting your parts list together. She's not just looking for what's the cheapest price. It's about what's the best part at the best price for your specific needs, expectations, and budget. Okay, so these documentation, I've never seen such documentation for a cooler. I'm guessing that this is just all different languages, but what a waste of resources. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 separate instruction manuals. The first one appears to be German. This one appears to be Spanish. You see right here in the corner? Right up here in the corner. This one appears to be French. This one appears to be, I don't know, whatever PL is. Polish? I don't know. Russian. English. All right. I'm so glad they sent me all of that paper to go into the trash can. All right. You know what? The instructions don't seem so bad. They are in color. That's a nice touch. It's good to see. This is all AMD mounting, which we're not going to do any of that. This here would represent socket 1150. No, that's socket 2011. So just this page, this is, of all the instructions they sent, it looks like that's the instructions. Just that, from all I can tell. See what they say here. I don't see any, oh yeah, there's thermal compound in there. We recommend preparatory mounting of the cooler outside of the PC case for subsequent installation. You're going to need the cooler, the fan. It's a 135 millimeter fan. What a weird size. How do you replace that? So here's the concern I have right now, right out of the gate. If you choose a Mugen 5 or a Cooler Master Hyper 212 EVO, you're using a standard 140 millimeter fan, which you can purchase. They're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. You don't have to use one from Corsair or Scythe. You could use any cooler from anyone, Noctua included. But where are you going to find a 135 millimeter fan other than from Be Quiet? They're going to lock you in, right? And then charge you because they can, because there's no competition to this. As far as I know, nobody else makes a 135 millimeter fan. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct me, but I've never in my career seen a 135 millimeter fan before. I've seen 120, I've seen 140. I've never seen 135. And I don't like anything that's proprietary, because the point of going with an air cooler is reliability. The worst thing that can happen is your fan dies. So you go buy a new fan. But if the fan is some bizarre size, good luck finding one. And if you do find it, there's not going to be much in the line of competition to make that price aggressive. You might realize that it's cheaper to buy a whole different cooler than just buying the fan in the years ahead, depending on Be Quiet's success or lack thereof. Christoph S. just contributed €5. He says, the art of computing is the magic a person can create with it, not the system itself. But that's just me. Agreed, Christoph. Anybody can put stickers all over their car, but that doesn't mean you know how to drive. Let's see. You know, whatever color you paint your car, you can chrome it out, put lighting underneath of it. It doesn't make you a good driver. It doesn't make your car more reliable. It seems like just people with too much money and just don't know what to do with it. That's, again, just the way I was raised. I wasn't raised with money, so I can't imagine wasting it on something that has no return on investment with regards to a computer, with regards to performance, reliability. Those are the two main kickers. And a system that's not reliable, therefore has no performance. Craig says the Hyper 212 Black Edition went to Clips. Well, that's a shame. I'm still scrolling through the comments here. Okay. So, let's see. It looks like there's some adapters here in the bag. Let's take a look at what we've got in here. This is the RAM, which we can install after this, and then after that, the board can go into the case. So this says AMD. There's nothing AMD on this system. So this bag here will just stay with the extra parts in case the customer goes to an AMD system and wants to move the cooler. And then this says Intel, so that'll be the parts we're using. And then we've got a bracket and some screws and thermal compound. So in the Intel bag, let's see what we got here. We got a funky connector that's 2 pieces. That looks like it's going to be fun. We've got this metal backplate. Nothing unique here. The metal backplates are used on the Hyper 212 EVO as well, and on the Mugen 5. And then we've got the standoffs and a bunch of screws. That's a lot of screws for mounting a heatsink. I don't know why there's so many. This is a little intimidating. I don't think I've seen a cooler this intimidating to install in quite some time. It's definitely not easy. So easy would be a very simple set of instructions with a very simple set of tools. This is way more screws and parts, and nothing is already locked together, so it's very easy to flip something upside down by mistake or to miss a screw somewhere. But let's just go through it. I doubt you'll ever see me install one of these again based on how I feel right now. That fan size alone is enough to make me never use one of these again. And this sheer amount of mounting hardware for what is essentially a 2-screw process or a 4-screw process on a Mugen 5 doesn't seem worth the effort. But this is how we get experience in life. So let's just do it. Position the Intel backplate screws, of which there are, so it shows here, we're on socket 1151, and somehow in that diagram you're supposed to determine where that screw needs to line up, which is a little confusing. And then they want those screws and washers, which is going to be a challenge to hold the board by myself, hold the backplate, hold the washer, feed the screw through the backplate, through the washer, through the mounting hole in the board. Now, I got to do that 4 times. And the washers are necessary because they don't give you any standoffs on this to prevent this from grounding out against the back of the board. It's got to be one of the most thoughtless, careless, and disrespectful designs to a builder that I've ever encountered. Simply installing little rubber standoffs on these to prevent grounding against the board would be one less chore the builder has to undertake, along with a very strong responsibility of potentially destroying the board just because a washer didn't line up and it fell and you didn't notice it. So this is not a cooler for a beginner. I would advise you to be an advanced user before you choose the Dark Rock 4. I am not. I mean, I've gone into this with a bad attitude right out of the gate. I admit it. But this is getting worse. This is worse than I ever thought it would be. If this was a new style of cooler that we've never seen before, I'm all on board because I have no point of reference. But I do have points of reference in mounting hardware and techniques that are far simpler and far easier to install. I don't know why you would pay more money and put more effort into something when the end result will basically be the same as it would be with other coolers. You spend more money and require more labor for what? Who is liking these coolers? What is there to like about it? Is it the proprietary fan design you like? Is it the fact that you need 4 hands to install it with 18 screws? Or is it that you just have a lot of money and you don't know what to do with it? It's weird to me that people like this or recommend it. That's really weird. I don't know why you would do that when there are cheaper alternatives that are easier to install and don't have proprietary fan designs. Am I being clear? All right, so in this bag, no, it's not as easy as just putting screws in the back plate. There are washers that have to go on the other side. That's my biggest concern. The washer shouldn't be there. That should be built onto the back plate. Having to balance the washer, the screw, the back plate, and the motherboard with just 2 hands, there's nothing simple about that. You're just being argumentative if you think that's simple, because clearly in reality it's not. Joe's contributed $4.99. Hello all, nice to see the stream still going. Have fun and good luck tomorrow. Carrie, looks like it's time for another Coke. Yeah, I agree. All right, let's get these out of here. So here's these little teeny tiny rubber washers. This is absolutely unacceptable. For this price, nobody else that I'm aware of makes tower coolers that require rubber washers to prevent grounding out against the back of the board. And no other cooler manufacturer that I'm aware of uses a proprietary size fan. Now, if it's sold for 20 bucks, I get it. You're doing it for 20 bucks. This is an expensive cooler. So it's just not, it doesn't make any sense. Work harder, ultimately get about the same cooling you're going to get from other manufacturers with a more difficult install and pay top dollar for it. Really? Okay, so here's the screw they want us to use. And this is almost more like a rivet. What they've done here is actually a good, I'll give them credit for this. They've got a shoulder here that's carved out so it will lock into place. So when you tighten something on top of it, you don't have to hold it with a screwdriver like you would on a Hyper 212 EVO, right? So in that way, they're a bit better. However, trying to figure out how that goes in there, right? That's a little bit of a puzzle, because is it going to go there? Is it going to go there? The documentation kind of shows it, but it's not clear. And remember, the washer has to go on it, like so. You better not lose that washer. That washer is so critical. That little tiny washer is what can kill your $2,000 motherboard. That, and it's rubber. So over time, if it dries up and it cracks and it falls out, and then the back plate falls forward and grounds out your board, too bad, so sad. Because this whole plate is metal, right? So any point of this plate makes contact with the back of the board, you're done. And it can take out your RAM, your CPU, it could potentially take everything out. It seems awfully risky. The thing about these rubber washers is it's like a rubber band. Do yourself a favor, if you don't believe me, go buy a bag of rubber bands. You pick them up at any store, stick them in a drawer, and then wait a year. And take the rubber bands out and try and stretch any of them without breaking them. They get dry and brittle, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. They should have, in my opinion, they should have used some kind of a foam or rubberized sticker on the back, so that would not be a potential possibility. And somebody building for the first time who forgets to put these on or puts them in the wrong place, if they put them on the other side, they're going to ground their board out and could potentially toast their hardware, which is not a warranty claim. That's on you for not knowing what you're doing. It shouldn't be an option for you to choose. It's just it's one of the worst designs I've ever encountered on a third-party cooler. Very disappointed. Now, one good thing I can say is the washer seems to be holding the screw in place, and that's well and good when it's new, and that may make the install a bit easier so I don't have to hold the washer while I'm doing it. But I can't help but wonder if you take this off in a year or later, if you're going to be able to get it back on without replacing those. And I don't know where you're going to find them. The only place that's going to sell them, it's proprietary by Be Quiet. Nobody else makes that. Why would you put yourself in that position unless there was a financial advantage, like it was really inexpensive? Or it cooled so amazingly that it justified all this trouble. Mike Zawalinski has contributed $10. He says, have you tried the Blackmagic mini recorders on a PC? I use them on an old MacBook. I want to build a small port. Now that's what I'm trying to get work, is the Blackmagic mini recorder. I can't get it to work, but I'm gonna work on that later tonight. When I'm done with this, off camera, I'll play around with it, see if I can't get it sorted. So I'm not exactly sure what position, again, because the hole is so wide, I'm not positive where these screws go, but I'm going to put 2 of them in and see if that aligns, and if so, I'll continue with the other 2 in the same position. I think they go closest to the edge. The documentation isn't real clear to me on that, but let's just give this a shot and see what it looks like. Does that one line up? No. So it does not line up. So that means, and that's why I stopped where I did, they've got to go on the inside, which means just sort of pulling it down. Let's see if that's any better. No. Something's not right. Okay, let's try that. So this puts the screws towards the inside of the connector, of the bracket, I mean. And that's where they've got to go, but they've got to be straight. I mean, the tolerance here, there's really no wiggle room. It has got to be precisely done. Again, this is definitely not a cooler for a first-time builder, and maybe not even a second or third-time builder. You really have to be mechanically inclined and gifted, or have a lot of experience under your belt with other third-party coolers. And if you do, you'll probably be cursing under your breath the whole time, like I am, over the nonsensical proprietary design of so many parts of this cooler that just seem unjustifiable. If this was the Mugen 5 cooler, I would have been done 10 minutes ago. And probably with no difference in cooling performance, with a standard fan that can be replaced by anybody. If I wanted to replace it with a Noctua fan, I could. Not this one. Okay. Let's make sure that that one is sitted down in the correct place. Okay, that looks better. I am grateful that those washers are holding those screws in. Mirror Aura has contributed $5. Says, thank you for reviewing this cooler. I've added it to my no-buy list. I agree. You know, there's a lot of advertising on the box, and I see mentioned in the chat room a 200-watt TDP. The TDP is not a problem we're having with other coolers. It's not as though they're solving something. It's a marketing gimmick to convince you it's worth spending more and tolerating this to solve a problem that doesn't exist. It's a very strange methodology. If you're overclocking, you're not going to use an air cooler anyway. You're definitely going to want a liquid cooler, because that doesn't even compete with a 200 TDP compared to what a liquid cooler can offer you. So it's not as though You're saying, hey, I can overclock better with this. If you were serious about overclocking, you wouldn't use air at all. It's just inferior. All right, let's see if this is going to line up this time. Okay, that looks good. Let me just set this down and let gravity assist us. All right, so now the back plate is on there, and that was because the washers are holding the screws in position. That process has been made simple, but I want to reiterate, those washers are going to dry and they're going to crack and be brittle and fall off. That is going to happen. Now, because I'm in Phoenix, I would experience it, as would anybody in this dry climate, more so than somebody in a humid climate, but it will eventually happen. With other coolers, it's not a factor. It would just never happen with a EVO 212 or a Mugen 5. It just isn't, it's not an option. And so your TDP ability is ridiculous and unnecessary when the cooler's backplate is grounding out against your board and toasting your RAM and all your equipment. You know, now you've got different problems. It's almost a distraction technique to distract you onto some stats versus focusing on the installation method, which is potentially dangerous and hard to sustain in a dry climate over a long period of time. And that's the benefit of choosing an air cooler over a liquid cooler, is you're not supposed to have that kind of maintenance. If you want that kind of maintenance, go to a liquid cooler. This doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know how many different ways I can reiterate the lack of logic in this design. All right, so the next thing that's got to go on are these tall, narrow standoffs, and these are going to go just onto the screws here and lock that back plate into position. And we just want to get them all started before we tighten them down, because we want a nice level, even application of pressure across the back plate. So we just start these first. And then, once they're started, we can use the included screwdriver, which I have somewhere. And then we can just get those tightened down. Now remember, as you tighten this down, you're squishing that delicate rubber washer. I want you to remember that. Because the more pressure, the more you squeeze that rubber washer, the more likely the life is being reduced out of it, and you're stressing it. And then when you combine that stress with a dry climate or just age in general, it's going to crack, it's going to fall off, and then that metal's going to hit the metal on the back of your motherboard. So if we look back here and you look at what this can touch, what this plate can ground out against, it looks like, based on this motherboard design, that there is no componentry that this can hit underneath this leg, this leg, this leg, or this leg, and that the socket itself, the CPU socket, is keeping it away from the electronics located in the center and the soldering points here on the left and below. If this were to drop down, which it's not going to do because the screws aren't going anywhere, if it were to drop down, you would maintain a short on the board and potentially fry your CPU and God knows what else in the circuit. Based on the motherboard design here, it doesn't look like, and again, it's going to be very specific to the board, but it looks like if this were to ground out against the board at this point, where any of these legs are, where the rubber washer would fall off, it doesn't look like there'd be any shorting occurring. But again, that doesn't mean that that's going to be the same layout on other boards. And clearly, if it wasn't something they were worried about, they would not have included the washers if they weren't necessary. So, yeah, it's just not good. Okay, what do we have next? Next, they want us to put these little plates on. That's this bag here. And and oh, I see. So I was assuming when I saw this that these sort of went like this, like a Cooler Master Hyper 212. But no, these are more like the Mugen in the fact that they install across the brackets. But the question is, which direction are they going to go? Do they go this way or do they go this way? And it looks like there's nothing to prevent you from doing it one way or the other, because all of the standoffs are equally spaced, whether you are going a north-south install or an east-west. By looking at the diagram, it does show that there are some points on these brackets that indicate going towards the CPU, you know, that goes around the CPU. But it's a little vague with regards to this step here with the direction, because I don't see the CPU, the lever. Huh. It's not shown here. It's not shown here. And it's not shown here. So I'm going to have to take a guess. I think if these go on this way, and then this were to go on this way, there must be another bracket. Something's missing. Something rests inside of here, which must be this right here. That's what this is for. Okay. So we're going to grab, let's see, these screws, regular screws. I think these go on the inside of the bracket. Once again, they don't do a very good job in the documentation. They show lines, but it's on such an angle, it's almost vertical, you know, straight on. It's very difficult to tell which of the holes they want you to use, but it should only align one way, so it should be very difficult to get wrong. But if anybody can get it wrong, it's me. All right, let's see, two more. Let's go here. And let's go here. Now, I want to reiterate, because I've never installed one of these before, it's obviously a foreign process to me, so I'm not going to be expedient at it. But I have little motivation to ever recommend this cooler again. Just the fan size alone is enough for me to say enough. The price is the second reason. But let's take a look here. If we were to put this in this way, and then we use this bracket, and then there's two little standoffs left that we would use to attach the bracket. So how many screws is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 14 screws. That may be a record. I don't think I've ever used 14 screws. Well, could be more than 14. Hold on, there's two more. And I don't know if it's supposed to be these that are used or these. And these also have washers. Let's take a look and see if that goes in there. And then that sits on top of that. Then which screws do we use? It wants those screws. So what are these little standoffs for? What did these? I don't know what these are for. if these are for an Intel socket 2011, how come I only have 2 and not 4 of them? I'm going to guess that's what they're for. I'm going to guess that's for a socket 2011 and we don't use them. So the next thing we can do, of course, is, oops, forgot I didn't have that tied down. There's a piece of plastic that's covering the surface. It's to keep it free of any detritus, dust, oils from your skin. They want this surface perfectly machined, smooth, and polished in order to transfer heat as effectively as possible. And likewise, the top of the CPU is the same. Now, you don't have to get crazy with this stuff. If you touch it, it probably isn't going to really make any difference in the cooling. But if you want to give yourself the best cooling possible, you want to make sure the top of that heatsink on the CPU and the bottom of the heatsink here are completely free of any contaminants. And that includes, like I mentioned, oils from your skin and dust. Right, and here in the desert, it's very dusty. So what I want to do is I'm going to grab my rubber glove and I'm going to show you how I apply thermal compound. Now, there's a lot of people who are very passionate about the application of thermal compound, but as far as I know, none of those people have been running a business for 27 years. Well, 28 years? 28 years? So I want you to keep that in mind, right? Because everybody's got an opinion, but is the person who's offering you their opinion coming from a place of professional experience, or are they just a hobbyist, an enthusiast, somebody who watches a lot of videos? That doesn't make you an expert. You're not going to learn how to ride a bicycle from watching videos and reading articles. And so whether or not you choose to believe somebody over me, I don't profit, and it doesn't cost me anything, and I don't make any money regardless of the decisions you make. All I can do is encourage you to say, look, if this guy's been doing this, and it's verifiable as an author, a radio show host, as an educator in the colleges and the system, if he's been doing this and sustaining his own business this long, he must be doing something right, because most businesses in this arena don't last more than a couple of years. So how is he able to do that for close to 3 decades? I'm showing you for free right now. And if you want to dismiss it, it really has no impact on my life. So I just get frustrated when people want to argue with me, and those people come from a place of no experience or no provable professional experience where they're responsible and accountable for other people's machines over a series of time like I am. And that being said, this is not about arrogance. It's not about anything other than just factual information and how you choose to accept or deny it. And I want to emphasize to you that I do this out of the kindness of my heart. I could easily charge for these videos. I could easily, profit from the information that I share with you guys. But I choose to give it away for free, and the price that I pay for that are people with unverifiable backgrounds and fake names trying to discredit me or prove me wrong. I don't know what's in it for them. I don't know why they do it, but be aware of it, and ultimately, your decisions and your consequences. That has no impact on me or anybody else, right? Just you. I just trying to help. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some thermal compound here on the CPU. Oh my God, there's almost nothing in this tube. Wow. So that tube arrives pretty much empty. There's almost not enough. Certainly, if you had a Threadripper, you wouldn't even cover half of it with that. There's not enough thermal compound here. I can't use it. So once again, we have an expensive cooler, and for some reason, the powers that be have decided to restrict the amount of thermal compound you get with your cooler to less than one application. In my opinion and in my experience, there's not enough thermal material here for a single application. So if you're going to buy, if you're not going to take my advice and you definitely want to buy one of these, be sure you buy some thermal compound because you're not going to get enough. And you won't, you certainly, if you screw it up, you don't even have enough for the first application. I've never seen a cooler manufacturer ever do this before. They usually give you a minimum of 3 times more than you need. And they don't even give you enough for one. So Dark Rock fails hard there. That's a hard fail. Now, if a customer insists that they want to use a Dark Rock 4, you will see me build with them. However, I will do my best to dissuade anybody from ever using one of these coolers again. There's just better alternatives that cost less money and don't have all of this ridiculous proprietary nature to their design and selfishness with regards to the thermal compound. There's no excuse for that. Thermal compound is cheap. It's cheap, cheap, cheap. There's no reason for them to be so stingy with it. It's absolutely unjustifiable at this price range. That is almost as big of a disappointment as the size of the fan. But at this point, I don't know if it's possible for me to be any more disappointed with Dark Rock and the folks at Be Quiet. And it may be a long time before you see another Be Quiet product here, because now I am soured on the entire brand. Because if this is what people are bragging about, I'm scared. I'm scared for them. That that's their, if that's what they think is good, then they don't know what good is. So, just to make my point, here is a used tube of thermal compound from Cooler Master with a Hyper 212 EVO. It's far more filled than the stinginess of what was in this, which was almost empty. This plunger didn't go down very far. It was almost empty the way it was sent. What is this made from? Platinum? There's no reason for them to be that stingy on thermal compound. All right, let me do this again. Now I have a nice good line with much still left over for a third application. And I'm going to use my glove, and I again, just to keep this as clean as possible, to keep it free of contaminants. And I'm just going to finger paint the thermal compound on top of the CPU. And I just want to make sure that we have a nice even coverage across the entire surface, because there's a video chip under there. There's, you know, the whole area under that heat spreader is going to get hot. And so you don't just want the center to be cooled. You want the whole thing to be cooled. And with that, I can take this glove off finally and get rid of that. I'll be glad when this cooler's installed. Just angry, just angry. I understand something could be a pain in the butt for the greater good, but I don't see any benefit to this. I don't see where's the advantage of going through this hassle and these limitations voluntarily at this price point to just be right where you would be with a different cooler at a cheaper price. It's weird, man, weird. Okay, that's gonna go on there. And then this piece will go on here. Which way does it go? Guessing it's got to go down and fit into these grooves and lock in. That's what it appears that it needs to do. And then we'll grab the 2 screws here to secure it. just get each one started. That one's good and tight. And now that one's on there good. So I'll just double check, make sure we got a nice strong bond between the bottom of this heatsink and the top of the heat spreader on the CPU. The words "be quiet" are facing that way, so when the board is installed and you look through the window, you can see the brand. It's really important you guys promote this company for some reason. And then we've got the fan to install, and I don't think I need to read the instructions for this. We've got 4 hangers in case you want to put a fan on both sides. I think that's completely unnecessary. It's overkill, and it only comes with 1 fan. The direction on these fans is pretty easy to tell. Wherever there's brackets, that's where the air is coming out. And where you have the center that spins, you see how the logo is going around? That's always the side that brings air in. On every fan you'll ever see, that's how they work. And then what we can do is look to see where this is going to plug in. On this motherboard, it's going to plug in right here. So when we put this on, we can think about our cable management, right? Do we want to run it down here like this and plug it in? It looks like a pretty clean way to do it, doesn't it? Normally, I would probably come in this way and then use a nylon zip tie. But I guess if we just went underneath, we wouldn't need the nylon zip tie, and it would still maintain a nice level cable management. Let's take a look. If I plug that on, would I still need to use a zip tie? I think it'll be all right. Let's try it. I mean, the great thing is you can change your mind. You know, you can try it one way. If you don't like it, you can put it on, rotate it. Let me take a look at this. This has got to go. Let's see. One side on. A very chintzy design. Again, these wire hangers, as far as I'm concerned, they're just not secure. They're not secure enough. It's, you know, if I was going to ship something like this a far distance, I would be very worried that this just wouldn't fall off with this chintzy of an application of what's holding it in place. It's not instilling much confidence to me. And again, and I want to emphasize, price is a big factor in my complaining here. This is an expensive cooler. And I don't get why people are so excited about it. I really don't get it. I think the Mugen 5 is a better value. And I would challenge the Mugen 5 against this cooler or any other Air Tower cooler in efficiency and cooling capability. And even if this did cool it better, I don't think it cools it better enough to justify all of the proprietary nature, added expense, and difficulty in installation. That's my opinion. Yeah, I think that'll work okay. Okay, any questions from this point? I just need to take a break because I'm about to lose my mind in anger. Glenn says, this fan will consume most of the build time. Well, clearly. But again, everything else on the build I've worked with before. So, you know, there's going to be an appearance that it's easier because of that. But at the same time, the very first time I installed the Mugen 5 went much easier than I ever anticipated. I was looking to see, what did I do with that? Some people have asked if I pulled the sticker off the bottom of the cooler. You guys can rewind the video and check, but you can see that's the sticker that was on the bottom. It's very important that you remove that. It'd be pretty easy to forget to, but I will give them kudos for putting a little tab at the bottom of it, so it would be fairly obvious. The Mugen didn't do that, didn't have that little tab, so it was easy for me to install and not even realize that I had left it on. But I definitely removed it, but thank you for asking and double checking, because you even had me doubting when you said it. I was like, wait a minute, did I? Pretty sure I did. So the last thing I have to do to prep the motherboard is to put the RAM in, which should go real simple now that we've done all the hard stuff's out of the way. Hope I don't say that too soon. And let's see, I'm done with that. That's empty. That's spare parts. That's empty. That's empty. That's documentation for the cooler. We don't need that anymore. I need the razor blade to get the RAM out. There's one. There's two. Okay, it looks like I missed anything in the comments, so I guess I'll just move forward now. So here we've got the Corsair Vengeance. This is RGB RAM. Each stick is 8 gigs, right? That's what the RAM looks like right there. And we've got 4 sticks of it, so we don't have to worry about which sockets to use because we're going to use them all. And on this motherboard, both sides open. Sometimes this side doesn't open on some boards. Now, look at, I can't get the RAM module into the nearest socket. We've already run into a problem. That's not good. Okay. This experience with this cooler is proving to continue to be an exercise far more difficult than justifiable for its price range and design. Whatever the benefits are to having it, it certainly seems to me in my conclusion that its consequences outweigh its benefits. If I can't use this socket, I can't install all the RAM. And there doesn't seem to be any adjustment possible on the cooler design. So I'm stuck. If I take the fan off to put the RAM in, then I won't be able to put the fan back on. You can see the RAM is very tall. It's RGB RAM. And when the RAM sits into the socket, it's going to go this high up over the fan. So I don't know how you think I'm supposed to get that fan back on. It's not like it just needs to go underneath the ridge. It's going almost a ½ inch over that ridge, covering up a good section of the blades, right? Look how much of that blade is being covered up, this bottom blade. That's disconcerting. Now, first of all, this RAM was a bad choice. And this RAM was a bad choice because of its height. People are paying more money for these RGB lights and then restricting themselves with regards to the cooler choice, as well as power consumption is also added, just to add some lights to the case. So if the RAM didn't have the lights, the RAM would be about half this tall. You know, we'd be down right about here. And then it would probably, it would still be a close fit, but I think we could make it work. We could even raise the fan up a little bit. But for this to fit, this fan has to go way, way up. I'll just show you. I don't even know how I'm supposed to get the fan off now. There's no pull tabs on the wire hanger. There is none. So on the EVO 212, the wire hanger has, in the middle, it's got these little hooks, and you grab the hooks and pull it out. These wire hangers have no such hooks. I don't know how you're supposed to take them off. They don't seem to have any removal possibility here. I'm not quite sure what you're supposed to do. I guess I'm going to have to MacGyver this, and there should be some kind of a pull tab here. It's just, there's nothing here. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I need to get on the phone to the customer, and I need them to get rid of this cooler. This isn't going to work on this build. This was a bad build choice, and this cooler does not fit the system. He either needs to get different RAM or he needs to get a different cooler. That's it. That's all there is. You can see based on the hanger design, I can only go 1, 2, 3 levels up on these little fins, which means the fan can only go up that much more, and I need twice that to make room for the clearance on the fan. This is very surprising because Catherine's usually very, very good at this, and I think Catherine put this list together, but I think she dropped the ball here. And I'm not looking to point blame. I appreciate the work Catherine does. This, I never want to see one of these again, Catherine. Never, ever, on any build, ever again. And this is exactly why. Catherine can say, well, you can ask for your money back. Agreed. She did it for free, and she had all the right intentions. This is a bad, bad combination of parts here. It's not going to fit together. If we were only using 2 sticks of RAM, we could make it work, but it's still going to potentially block the airflow on that fan. Look at that. That is a bad, bad design. Now, no matter what cooler I put on here, that RAM is going to be so tall as to get in the way. However, in the way of the airflow, but by pushing the fan further in, such as on the Mugen 5, it'll still suck air in from the sides. You know what I mean? So it's not going to interfere with the installation of the RAM. So at this point, I think I need to talk to the client, and we have to figure out which thing we want to replace. Either the cooler's got to go or the RAM's got to go. That's just the way it's going to be. And these are the types of consequences you run into. Now, Frederick says you can move the fan to the other side, and this is true. We can put it into a pull configuration, flip the fan around, and that will give us the clearance we need. However, if the point of this was to have better cooling, why would we install it in an inferior cooling position of drawing air in instead of pushing air through? It will work. It will work to put the fan on the other side, but it's very untraditional and is not commonly an accepted practice or recommended practice from cooler manufacturers unless it's your only choice. We have other choices. Because the system's not built yet, we still have the position to replace the RAM or replace the cooler. If the customer were to say, look, flip the fan to the other side, I will. But I can tell you right now, if the point of ordering this was superior cooling, you just lost that superior cooling flipping the fan to the other side. So, yes, there are ways to make it work, but they're not ideal. They don't fit the norm. You wouldn't see me do that, and you've never seen me do that on any other cooler ever in the history of this channel. But now I'm supposed to do it for this one. The expensive one that was hard to install with a proprietary size fan and the wire hangers that don't have handles to pull out and 14 screws to install it. That's an acceptable solution to you guys? It isn't to me. My standards are far higher than that. So at this point, I need to talk to the customer. I wonder if in the documentation they recommend putting the fan on the other side. Nope. Isn't it interesting? And this is how unrealistic and offensive this documentation is because it's so unrealistic. I have never in my life seen a motherboard where the RAM was that far away. That is manipulation and deception if I've ever seen it. Where have you ever seen a motherboard? See my finger right there? Where the RAM is over 1.5 inches away from the fan on the cooler. How big of a motherboard are they working with? That's just offensive because it's not realistic. They did not use a real motherboard. That's a drawing. I can draw a motherboard. But at least you should base it on a real motherboard, not on what makes your fan look good. Remember what I said about bad series of events, right? It started out bad, but the truth is it wouldn't have mattered if I did this tomorrow or if I did it Thursday. Whatever I did it, I was still going to run into this. The problem is, because of it started out bad, I had a bad attitude, and as more bad things happened, my attitude was already predisposed to just like be very intolerant because instead of saying, hey, I'm going to enjoy my build, I'm going, what's the next ridiculous thing that has to defy logic over aesthetics? It's upsetting to me because I'm asking myself, why? Why is this justifiable by the manufacturer? What makes this okay? Not only that, but what makes this a premium product to charge top dollar, to be so difficult to install, have such a proprietary nature, be stingy on the thermal compound, and then not leave me enough room to install my RAM? I mean, how much more insulting and disrespectful can you be towards your customer? So, with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up for today because I'm really upset, if you can't tell. There's just no good reason. If somebody said, yeah, but the benefit of this is the system's going to run negative 20 degrees Celsius, or it came free with the motherboard, or some return on the investment of time and labor and frustration, but if it's just going to run like any other cooler, why pick it? I don't understand why anybody would choose this when you've got better solutions from the competitors at a cheaper price that are easier to install and come with more than enough thermal compound and, have hooks on the wire hangers to easily remove the fans. I don't My brain can't process this offense. It's so grossly offensive. It's so obvious and overt. And people go online and they recommend this cooler. Well, maybe one of them want to come over and show me how to make that work. Would the Mugen 5 work? I've never had a fitment issue with the Mugen 5 before, but I don't think I've tried installing it with RAM this tall before, and I don't have a spare one. Otherwise, I'd give it a shot. I do have a spare EVO 212. I know for a fact the EVO 212 will work because it's not this wide. People are hung up on the wrong priorities. If you're getting hung up on the dissipation on this unit, the heat dissipation, then you're missing everything else, from the price, the installation, the stinginess, the materials. You're missing the entirety of the point of the process of the cooler, and you're focused only on an end result, which is only a potential. But installing is not a potential. Installing is something you're going to have to deal with. Whether or not you're going to actually dissipate 200 TDP is highly unlikely. So you're solving a problem you don't have and creating a bunch of problems you shouldn't have and spending more money than you need to spend. But hey, look, it's black. I'm not a drinker, but I just might start. All right, guys, it's just a computer. It's not a big deal. I'm frustrated because I thought I'd get further than this. I really thought that I would be much further along and that I would be proved wrong. I thought, I'm going to be proved wrong. I'm going to get this installed and I'm going to say, this actually is a good cooler. Now that it is worth it. Now that I've seen the light, there's no light to be seen. It's dark. The further down this cave I go, the worse it gets. Like, I can't imagine what else this manufacturer, Be Quiet, could do that could be more offensive than what they've already done. It's horrible. But it is about time for me to wrap it up. The dogs need to have their dinner, and so do I, quite frankly, at this point. And then maybe after that, I'll try and get that Blackmagic mini recorder working. I'm feeling good about that. I feel like I'm really close. The fact that the system now recognizes and sees it is further than I've gotten before. And like I said, the peace of mind buying from Amazon, I can return it. I don't want to. I want to make it work. So hopefully I'll be able to figure that out a bit later. So thank you guys for watching. For all the contributions that came in, thank you guys for supporting the channel. And yeah, try and see this kind of live frustration on any of those other tech channels with the hobbyists and enthusiasts who are building stuff for themselves. When you're building it for somebody else, things get a lot more serious, And thankfully, this is a very patient client and a very understanding client, and I have no doubt we'll resolve this without a problem. But the problem that I run into is time. I have the judge's build coming up, ideally Thursday or Friday, which, we're dealing with an issue early on, as you saw me taking calls from Newegg regarding a part that was supposedly delivered that never showed up. And we're going to have to replace that part, hopefully get it in time to keep the build on schedule for a Thursday or Friday build. But this, on the other hand, may not be able to be finished before then, and it may have to be put off until next week. This is what happens, right? Because everything gets scheduled well in advance, and if something takes longer, it goes back to the back of the line again. Because I'm not going to have 10 people wait because of one person. That one person's going to have to wait so the other 9 people can be helped on schedule, just as an example. Unless in extreme circumstance, and then I'll just do it at 2 o'clock in the morning and not film it, just so the client can get it if they need it. But then that doesn't benefit you guys to not see it. So I try to make everybody happy, but at the same time, I've got to maintain my commitments, and stuff like this just throws the whole schedule off. So anyway, a shout out to Frederick Lundholm, who's contributed 100 Swedish krona. He's done that twice. It's about $20 US. Thank you, Frederick, for your contribution. Mirora and Mike Zawinski, Joe, Christoph Esch, Soren Rasmussen, Boss Peter, Michael Lee, Terry Scoble, Daryl May, Juan Velez, Brad Henderson, Donnie Seeger, Alistair Collins, Andre Hernandez, Red Dragon, Faris Almanai, Joe again, Yehuda Blonder, and Madi Yoel. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Today was an emotional day, wasn't it? It's all kinds of frustration, from the mini recorder to the cooler to the missing parts. But I'm not bored. You know, if everything always goes as planned, I probably wouldn't do this anymore, because it wouldn't be a challenge. And so much of what I do is something I've done a million times before, that it's got to be countered with something to go wrong, or I just wouldn't be interested. If you played a game that you could easily win, why would you bother playing it? You know, I don't even think it'd be fun the first time. You certainly wouldn't have any desire to go back and play it again. There's no challenge to it. So, while this is frustrating, it is ultimately what keeps me in the business. It's stuff like this that sort of humble me and make me realize that, you know, first of all, I don't know everything. I do my best. Sometimes parts get the better of me, and I shouldn't let that happen, but when there's no justifiable excuse for it, I have a hard time tolerating it, because it just seems like greed and passive aggressiveness towards your customers to produce a product like that at that price and make it so proprietary, be so stingy with it. All the things I've said, the thermal compound, the wire hangers have no way to remove them. It's this proprietary size fan. There's way too many screws required to mount the little rubber washers that are going to dry and break, but on this board isn't going to matter anyway, but maybe on another board it will, specifically like an AMD board, you know, where they've got solder points there, or other Intel boards with the solder points. It's a horrible, horrible design, from the mounting bracket to the mounting mechanism to the thermal compound to the fan. There's nothing good about this cooler. It's not even a good price. Tell us how you really feel. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks to all my friends in blue for keeping it civil out there in the chat room. And we'll follow up with this. I'll have some information some way, somehow, hopefully by tomorrow. In the meantime, I will see you all again very, very soon. And until then, bye for now.